When people hear that beer contains zinc, it immediately sounds promising, especially if they already know that zinc plays an essential role in hair growth. The idea seems simple and convenient. If zinc supports hair follicles and beer contains zinc, then beer must be at least somewhat helpful for hair. But this conclusion is based on a misunderstanding of how much zinc is actually present in beer and how the body uses that mineral. The reality is that the zinc content in beer is so small that it has no meaningful impact on meeting your daily requirement, let alone correcting a deficiency that could be affecting your hair. Zinc is a trace mineral, but its importance is anything but minor. It is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body. These reactions control everything from immune function to protein synthesis to cellular repair. Hair follicles are among the most metabolically active tissues in the body, meaning they divide and grow rapidly. That rapid growth requires constant DNA replication, protein formation, and cellular turnover. Zinc is directly involved in stabilizing DNA during replication and supporting the enzymes that drive cell division. Without sufficient zinc, the hair follicle slows down its production cycle. The strand becomes thinner, weaker, and more prone to shedding. Because zinc is so important for hair biology, it is understandable why people look for easy ways to increase their intake. Beer enters the conversation because it is made from barley and yeast, both of which naturally contain small amounts of minerals, including zinc. During fermentation, some of those minerals remain in the final beverage. Technically, this means beer does contain zinc, but the key word here is trace. On average, a standard serving of beer contains roughly 0.02 to 0.05 milligrams of zinc. Now, compare that to the recommended daily intake. Adult men generally require about 11 milligrams per day, and adult women require around 8 milligrams per day. If a single serving of beer contains about 0.03 milligrams, you would need to drink well over 200 servings just to reach the daily requirement. Even if we assume a slightly higher zinc concentration, the amount remains nutritionally insignificant. The numbers simply do not support the idea that beer can serve as a practical source of zinc. When evaluating nutrient sources, it is important to think in terms of density and bioavailability. Density refers to how much of a nutrient is present per serving. Bioavailability refers to how easily your body can absorb and use that nutrient. Beer fails primarily on density. The zinc content is so diluted within the liquid that it does not contribute meaningfully to your daily intake. Hair growth depends on consistent nutrient availability. The follicle operates in cycles: growth phase, transitional phase, resting phase, and shedding phase. For the growth phase to remain strong and prolonged, the follicle must receive adequate nutrients every day. A negligible intake of zinc from beer does not provide enough support to influence this cycle. If someone is marginally deficient in zinc, drinking beer will not correct that deficiency. If someone has adequate zinc levels, beer will not significantly enhance them. Another factor to consider is that hair loss linked to zinc deficiency typically occurs when levels are substantially below optimal. Correcting that deficiency requires measurable increases in zinc intake from concentrated sources such as meat, shellfish, seeds, or supplements under guidance. The trace mineral presence in beer is too small to shift blood zinc levels in any meaningful way. It is also important to understand that zinc is not stored in large quantities in the body. Unlike some vitamins that can accumulate in fat tissue, zinc must be consumed regularly because the body does not maintain large reserves. This means that relying on an inconsistent, minimal source like beer will not maintain stable zinc levels. Hair follicles are highly sensitive to fluctuations in nutrient availability. If zinc intake is low, follicles can enter a weakened state relatively quickly. The misconception about beer and zinc likely comes from the broader understanding that yeast contains B vitamins and certain minerals. Brewers' yeast supplements are sometimes marketed for hair and skin health. However, concentrated brewers' yeast supplements are very different from diluted beer. In supplements, the yeast is present in significant amounts, often providing measurable quantities of nutrients. In beer, the fermentation process and dilution reduce mineral concentration dramatically. There is also a psychological component to the myth. People often prefer simple, enjoyable solutions. The idea that something commonly consumed socially could also benefit hair feels appealing. But biology does not work on convenience. Nutrient requirements are based on measurable quantities, not symbolic presence. A nutrient must be present in sufficient concentration to influence physiological processes. If someone is experiencing hair thinning due to low zinc, the solution involves increasing intake through nutrient-dense foods such as red meat, pumpkin seeds, eggs, and especially shellfish like oysters, which contain several milligrams of zinc in a single serving. These foods can meaningfully impact zinc status. Beer cannot. Another important point is that zinc works in coordination with other nutrients. Hair growth requires protein for keratin production, iron for oxygen delivery, B vitamins for energy metabolism, and healthy fats for hormone balance. Even if beer did contain slightly more zinc, it would still lack the protein and other cofactors required for optimal follicle function. Whole foods provide a complex matrix of nutrients that work together. Beer does not provide that matrix in meaningful amounts. When assessing any claim about nutrition and hair health, the first question should always be, does this source provide enough of the nutrient to reach physiological significance? In the case of beer and zinc, the answer is clearly no. The trace amounts present are far below what is required to support enzyme activity, DNA replication, or follicle regeneration. Hair follicles demand efficiency and adequacy. They require nutrients in concentrations that can sustain continuous cell division. A few hundredths of a milligram of zinc per serving does not move the needle. Even regular beer consumption does not accumulate enough zinc to affect hair growth cycles. Understanding nutrient density prevents misdirection. Instead of focusing on trace mineral myths, it becomes more productive to evaluate actual intake levels. If daily zinc intake falls below recommended values, correction must come from concentrated dietary sources or supplementation, not from diluted beverages. The presence of zinc in beer is technically true, but practically irrelevant. From a physiological standpoint, the quantity is too small to influence blood levels, follicle metabolism, or hair shaft strength. Hair growth responds to adequacy, not to traces. Without sufficient zinc intake from meaningful sources, follicles cannot operate at their full regenerative capacity. Beer's contribution remains nutritionally insignificant in the context of hair health and zinc requirement. NTS. It may seem logical to assume that drinking beer could help increase zinc levels because it contains trace amounts of zinc, but the opposite effect can occur once alcohol enters the body. Alcohol interferes with zinc balance through multiple mechanisms, and instead of improving zinc status, it often contributes to zinc depletion. This creates a hidden problem, especially for individuals concerned about hair health, because hair follicles depend heavily on stable and adequate zinc availability to function properly. One of the primary ways alcohol lowers zinc levels is by interfering with absorption in the small intestine. Zinc is absorbed through specialized transport systems in the intestinal lining. These transport systems depend on healthy intestinal cells and proper digestive function. Alcohol irritates and damages the intestinal lining, reducing its efficiency. When the intestinal lining becomes inflamed or compromised, nutrient absorption declines. Even if zinc is present in food, the body may not absorb enough of it. Over time, this reduced absorption leads to lower circulating zinc levels in the bloodstream. Alcohol also increases intestinal permeability, sometimes referred to as leaky gut. When the intestinal barrier is weakened, inflammation increases and nutrient transport becomes less efficient. Zinc transport proteins do not function optimally in an inflamed environment. This means the zinc you consume becomes less available to your tissues, including your hair follicles. Hair follicles rely on a steady supply of zinc to support cell division, protein synthesis, and follicle repair. Another major factor is increased zinc excretion. Alcohol has a diuretic effect, meaning it increases urine production. When urine output increases, minerals are lost more rapidly from the body. Zinc is one of the minerals that can be lost through urine. Frequent alcohol consumption accelerates this loss. Even if dietary zinc intake remains the same, increased excretion creates a negative balance. The body loses more zinc than it gains. This negative balance gradually reduces zinc availability at the cellular level. Hair follicles, being highly active tissues, are especially sensitive to this reduction. Zinc is required for the enzymes that control keratin production. Keratin is the structural protein that makes up the hair shaft. Without sufficient zinc, keratin formation becomes weaker, resulting in thinner, weaker hair strands. Alcohol also places stress on the liver, and the liver plays an important role in mineral regulation. The liver helps distribute nutrients throughout the body and stores certain minerals for later use. When alcohol is metabolized, the liver prioritizes breaking down alcohol over managing nutrient balance. This shift in priority reduces the liver's efficiency in regulating zinc distribution. As a result, tissues that need zinc, including the scalp and follicles, may receive less. The liver also plays a role in hormone regulation. Zinc contributes to hormone balance, particularly in controlling enzymes involved in androgen metabolism. When zinc levels decline, hormone regulation becomes less stable. This instability can increase the activity of hormones that negatively affect hair follicles. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to hormonal signals. Even small imbalances can shift follicles from the growth phase into the resting phase. Alcohol also increases oxidative stress in the body. Oxidative stress occurs when there are more free radicals than antioxidants available to neutralize them. Zinc plays a role in antioxidant defense. It is involved in the function of enzymes that protect cells from oxidative damage. When alcohol increases oxidative stress and zinc levels are low, hair follicle cells become more vulnerable to damage. Damaged follicle cells cannot maintain normal growth cycles. Another effect of alcohol is its impact on inflammation. Alcohol promotes systemic inflammation. Inflammation disrupts circulation, including blood flow to the scalp. Hair follicles rely on consistent blood supply to deliver oxygen and nutrients. Reduced blood flow weakens follicle performance. Zinc normally helps regulate inflammatory responses, but when zinc levels are depleted, inflammation becomes harder to control. Alcohol also disrupts protein metabolism. Hair is primarily made of protein, and zinc plays a role in protein synthesis. Alcohol interferes with the body's ability to properly utilize amino acids. This interference reduces the efficiency of keratin production. Even if protein intake is adequate, low zinc levels prevent proper utilization. Sleep disruption is another indirect factor. Alcohol interferes with deep sleep cycles. During deep sleep, the body performs repair and regeneration processes. Hair follicles rely on these repair cycles. Zinc is involved in cellular repair and DNA stabilization. Reduced zinc levels combined with poor sleep reduce the efficiency of follicle regeneration. Alcohol also affects appetite and dietary patterns. People who consume alcohol frequently may consume fewer nutrient-dense foods. This reduces overall zinc intake from food sources. Combined with reduced absorption and increased excretion, this creates a cumulative effect. Zinc deficiency develops gradually, and hair follicles begin to show signs of stress. The immune system is also affected. Zinc plays a major role in immune regulation. Hair follicles are influenced by immune activity. When zinc levels are low, immune responses become less balanced. This imbalance can contribute to inflammation around follicles. Chronic inflammation weakens follicles and shortens the growth. Phase of hair. Zinc also supports DNA repair mechanisms. Hair follicle cells divide rapidly, and rapid division increases the risk of DNA damage. Zinc-dependent enzymes help repair this damage. When zinc is depleted due to alcohol consumption, repair efficiency declines. Follicle cells cannot maintain optimal growth conditions. Another important factor is that zinc deficiency does not always produce immediate symptoms. Hair thinning can develop gradually. Increased shedding may occur slowly over time. Because the effects are gradual, the connection between alcohol consumption and zinc depletion often goes unnoticed. Alcohol also affects other nutrients that work alongside zinc. For example, alcohol interferes with magnesium and B vitamin metabolism. These nutrients work together with zinc to support energy production and cellular repair. When multiple nutrients become depleted, follicle function declines further. The body prioritizes essential survival functions over hair growth. When zinc levels are limited, the body directs zinc toward critical organs and systems rather than hair follicles. Hair growth becomes secondary. This results in slower growth, thinner strands, and increased shedding. Alcohol creates multiple overlapping obstacles to maintaining healthy zinc levels. It reduces absorption efficiency, increases urinary loss, impairs liver regulation, increases oxidative stress, promotes inflammation, disrupts protein metabolism, and interferes with cellular repair. Each of these effects reduces zinc availability to hair follicles. Hair follicles depend on zinc not only for growth, but also for maintaining structural integrity. Zinc stabilizes proteins and cell membranes. Without sufficient zinc, follicles become more fragile. This fragility leads to weaker hair strands and reduced growth performance. Even moderate alcohol consumption over time can influence zinc balance. The effect is cumulative. Small reductions in absorption combined with small increases in excretion gradually lower zinc status. Hair follicles respond to this decline by reducing growth activity and increasing resting phase duration. Maintaining healthy zinc levels requires efficient absorption, minimal excessive loss, and proper nutrient distribution. Alcohol interferes with each of these requirements, creating an internal environment where zinc becomes less available for hair follicle support. When it comes to supporting hair growth, zinc must come from sources that provide meaningful, absorbable amounts, not trace quantities. Hair follicles are highly active biological structures that depend on steady nutrient delivery to maintain growth, strength, and resilience. Zinc plays a direct role in DNA replication, protein synthesis, immune regulation, and hormone balance inside the follicle. To support these processes, the body requires consistent intake of zinc from nutrient-dense foods that contain sufficient concentrations to influence blood levels and cellular function. One of the most effective sources of zinc is red meat. Red meat contains zinc in a highly bioavailable form, meaning the body can absorb and use it efficiently. Bioavailability matters because not all zinc sources are equal. Zinc in animal foods is bound to proteins that enhance absorption, allowing the mineral to enter the bloodstream more effectively. A single serving of red meat can provide several milligrams of zinc, which is a substantial portion of the daily requirement. This level of intake directly supports follicle cell division, keratin production, and follicle repair. Hair follicles rely heavily on protein, and red meat provides both zinc and high-quality protein in the same food. Protein supplies amino acids that form keratin, the structural component of hair. Zinc supports the enzymes that assemble keratin. Without zinc, protein cannot be efficiently converted into strong hair strands. This combination of protein and zinc creates an ideal environment for follicle function. Pumpkin seeds are another excellent source of zinc, especially for those who prefer plant-based options. Pumpkin seeds contain measurable amounts of zinc in every serving. They also provide healthy fats, magnesium, and antioxidants that support circulation and reduce inflammation. Healthy circulation is essential for delivering zinc and oxygen to hair follicles. Improved blood flow ensures that follicles receive the nutrients needed for continuous growth. Pumpkin seeds also support hormone balance. Zinc helps regulate enzymes involved in hormone metabolism, including those that influence follicle sensitivity. Balanced hormone activity protects follicles from shrinking and weakening. Regular consumption of pumpkin seeds contributes to maintaining stable zinc intake, which supports long-term follicle health. Eggs provide another reliable source of zinc, along with additional nutrients essential for hair growth. Eggs contain protein, biotin, selenium, and zinc. These nutrients work together to strengthen hair structure and support follicle metabolism. Zinc supports cellular repair processes within the follicle, while protein provides the raw materials needed to build hair strands. Eggs also support scalp health. The scalp contains sebaceous glands that produce oil to protect and lubricate hair. Zinc helps regulate these glands. Proper oil production prevents dryness and brittleness while also preventing excessive oil buildup that can clog follicles. Balanced scalp conditions create a stable environment for follicle function. Shellfish, particularly oysters, contain some of the highest concentrations of zinc found in any food. A single serving of oysters can ID several times the daily zinc requirement. This high concentration makes shellfish one of the most effective foods for correcting zinc deficiency. When zinc levels are restored, follicle function improves. Hair shedding may decrease and new growth becomes stronger. The effectiveness of these foods comes from their nutrient density. Nutrient density refers to how much of a specific nutrient is present relative to the portion size. Foods with high nutrient density provide meaningful amounts of zinc without requiring excessive consumption. This allows the body to maintain optimal zinc levels consistently. Another important factor is absorption efficiency. Animal-based zinc sources are absorbed more efficiently than many plant-based sources because plant foods often contain compounds called phytates. Phytates bind to zinc and reduce absorption. While plant sources like pumpkin seeds still provide valuable zinc, combining them with animal sources improves overall zinc status. Hair follicles operate continuously. They do not store large reserves of zinc. This means the body must receive zinc regularly through the diet. Consistent intake from nutrient-dense foods ensures that follicles always have access to the zinc required for growth and repair. Zinc also supports follicle stem cells. These stem cells are responsible for generating new hair. When zinc levels are adequate, stem cells remain active and capable of producing strong hair strands. When zinc levels decline, stem cell activity slows. This results in thinner hair and slower regrowth. Another benefit of adequate zinc intake is reduced follicle inflammation. Inflammation disrupts follicle function and weakens hair structure. Zinc supports immune balance and helps regulate inflammatory responses. Reduced inflammation allows follicles to remain in the growth phase longer. Zinc also supports antioxidant defense. Systems. Hair follicles produce energy rapidly, and this process generates oxidative byproducts. Zinc-dependent enzymes help neutralize these byproducts, protecting follicle cells from damage. Protected follicle cells maintain stronger growth cycles. Zinc contributes to proper hormone regulation. Hormones send signals that control hair growth cycles. Zinc supports enzymes that regulate hormone conversion and activity. Balanced hormone levels protect follicles from excessive hormone exposure that could weaken them. Circulation also plays a critical role. Zinc supports vascular health, allowing efficient blood flow to the scalp. Blood delivers oxygen, nutrients, and minerals to follicle cells. Improved circulation enhances follicle performance. Nutrient-dense foods provide zinc along with complementary nutrients that enhance its effectiveness. For example, red meat provides iron and protein, eggs provide biotin and selenium, pumpkin seeds provide magnesium and healthy fats, and shellfish provide additional trace minerals. These nutrients work together to support follicle metabolism. Hair growth depends on cellular energy production. Zinc supports enzymes involved in energy metabolism. Efficient energy production allows follicle cells to divide and grow efficiently. Another important factor is tissue repair. Hair follicles experience constant mechanical and environmental stress. Zinc supports enzymes that repair cellular damage. Efficient repair processes maintain follicle strength. Scalp health also improves when zinc intake is adequate. Zinc supports skin integrity and reduces irritation. Healthy scalp tissue supports stable follicle anchoring. Zinc also supports proper immune surveillance. The immune system monitors follicle health and protects against microbial imbalance. Zinc supports balanced immune function, protecting follicles without triggering unnecessary inflammation. The consistency of zinc intake determines long-term follicle performance. Nutrient-dense foods provide steady zinc delivery, ensuring follicles remain active and healthy. Unlike trace sources that provide negligible amounts, concentrated food sources supply zinc in quantities that directly support biological function. Hair follicles respond to nutrient availability. When zinc intake is sufficient, follicles maintain stronger growth cycles, produce thicker strands, and resist damage more effectively. Nutrient-dense foods provide the level of zinc required to sustain these processes consistently.